Hey everybody. I thought that even though they covered the Bill of Rights in some of the presentations in Module 3, that I would just do an emphasis on the Bill of Rights and make sure that we went over it in depth. So really quickly, the First Amendment has 5 principles that you guys should know, and it goes through them really fast. Of course, you have the freedom of speech, the free exercise of religion, and the no establishment of religion, and those are different. One allows you to pray and worship the way that you want to, and the other says that the government's not going to impose a religion on you as a citizen. And then, of course, freedom of the press, which is the media, and the right to petition your government. So you have the right to ask your government to change things as long as you're not breaking the law. The Second Amendment is obviously the right to bear arms. Not for this particular assessment, but in general there is a debate over whether it's the right to have a militia, or does every single individual have the right to have any gun that they want. And this is a big debate going on right now in the Senate about the size of clips and whether you're allowed to have assault weapons in the wake of many school shootings. The Third Amendment is rarely talked about anymore. It was a big thing during the Revolutionary War, but you do not have to quarter soldiers in your house. The Fourth Amendment is basically no illegal searches and seizures, and basically it means that police officers have to have a warrant from a court order in order to search your belongings. And there's something important called the exclusionary principle, which means that if they perform an illegal search, that evidence that they find cannot be used against you in court. The Fifth Amendment also has several really important parts to it, like the First Amendment. The first is the right to due process of the law, and that just means that we cannot have our life, liberty, or property taken away from us without a court hearing, basically. So we can't be put to death, we can't be held against our will, and we can't have our property taken without a court hearing. The one we all know about is cannot be forced to testify against yourself. And we often see people say, I take the Fifth. That is part of the Fifth Amendment. You cannot be forced to testify against yourself. Then there's something called double jeopardy, which means you cannot be tried twice for the same crime if you've already been declared innocent by a jury. And last but not least, the concept of eminent domain is in the Fifth Amendment. And basically that's saying that the government cannot take away your property without paying you fairly for it. So the example that I always give is, if the government needs to put a freeway through your backyard, they can do it, but they have to pay you for it. They can't just do it without paying you. The Sixth Amendment is the right to a trial by an impartial jury. The Seventh Amendment is basically an extension of the Sixth. It's the right to a jury in civil cases, not just criminal cases. So even a trial over just a few $100s, you technically have the right to have a jury hear that case. Now, this does not happen in the United States for the most part. I would say that 99% of civil cases are not in front of a jury. And the Eighth Amendment is no cruel and unusual punishment. The biggest question recently has been, should the United States allow juveniles who've committed massive crimes like murder be allowed to be executed? And we decided, I think in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, that is no longer possible. If you are a minor, you are not allowed to be given the death penalty. The Ninth Amendment and the Tenth Amendment are fairly important. Basically, the Ninth Amendment says, we've written all these amendments But just because we didn't write them down doesn't mean we don't have those rights, because there may have been some that we have forgotten. So basically, this reserves rights for the people even if they're not written specifically down in the Constitution. And the last amendment of the Bill of Rights is the 10th Amendment. And basically it says that rights that are not given to the federal government are reserved for the states and the people. So we had to give specifically these rights to the federal government to have some power, but any rights not specifically given to the federal government are reserved for us, the people, and the states. And that is actually why the powers that are reserved for the states are called the reserved powers. There are 3 powers in the Constitution that you've read about. We've had enumerated powers, reserved powers, and concurrent powers. And concurrent powers means states and the federal government have that power. And a good example of that is a good example of concurrent powers are when the states and the federal government have power over a certain aspect. So you could say that education could fall under a concurrent power because we have a Department of Education at the federal level, but for the most part the states control their own school districts. Great. So that is the Bill of Rights, and I hope that you continue your work in Module 3 today, and good luck.